When I first came to Turkey, there were around 400,000 Syrian refugees. In the beginning, Syrians were unable to eat Turkish bread. Our bread was coming from Syria. That's why I've opened this bakery. Production's going well. Now Syrians are happier because they can find the bread they want here in Turkey.
Bassam was once a top customs official in Syria. He fell into the hands of the jihadist group ISIL while trying to escape the Assad regime and was held by the militants in a prison cell for 5 months. After being released, he settled in Gaziantep and opened a bakery. Now he feeds thousands of Syrian refugees.
My situation in Syria was like that of all Syrians who had relatively good positions. I was working as an Under-Secretary of Customs. Now more than 100,000 refugees in the camps are eating the bread of our bakery.
Not everyone in Gaziantep is as lucky as Bassam. Many live in squalor, in derelict buildings or sleep rough in parks, eking out a living by begging. Fatma Askis is one of those. She came to Gaziantep last year and has been living with her children in this ruined house since.
We live in very bad conditions. We were better off in Syria, but when they started bombing, we couldn't stay anymore. Look how we live here.
The official number of Syrian refugees in Turkey now tops 1,200,000. Including the unregistered, the figure in Gaziantep alone is said to have reached 400,000, around a quarter of the city's population. Dozens of camps have been set up across the south. We visited one in the town of Nizip, home to some 11,000 refugees. Their basic needs, including education and healthcare, are provided. But more importantly, they're far from the tensions with local people that have surfaced in Gaziantep. The EU and other international bodies are giving humanitarian aid.
We're distributing household essentials like blankets, mattresses and pillows. Here we're also distributing kitchen kits, bedding and hygiene kits. We're also giving out nappies for babies.
This massive influx of humanity has even altered the appearance of urban areas. Some locals have put prefab homes on top of their buildings to rent to refugees. Apartments are becoming increasingly difficult to find, even for Turkish residents. As a result, rents are soaring.
The prices of real estate properties, both for rent and for sale, have increased in an incredible way. The prices are up around 70%. Civil servants or government officials who've been appointed to posts in Gaziantep can't find apartments to rent when they come here.
Yani %70 gibi bir artış gösterdi.
Local authorities, unprepared and under-resourced, have been overwhelmed. They can't cater for all the refugees, so local and international organisations have been mobilised to bolster the aid effort. In this private school, set up by Syrians, children are having preschool lessons and also learning English. But these are the lucky few whose parents can meet the costs. In Gaziantep, there are 2 similar Syrian schools. However, this is far from the reality of life for the vast majority of refugees. Even in the established camps, conditions are extremely harsh. The crisis is most acutely felt in Gaziantep, and tensions with the local community are rising. The hostility echoes around social media. Fearing an outbreak of violence, the police have banned protests against the Syrian presence. There are even tensions between Turks over the issue.
There are Syrians coming onto our streets and staying. Sometimes they attack us with knives and guns. A lot of local people have been victims of violence. crimes like theft and sexual harassment have significantly increased. How far will this go? We feel very sad about this human tragedy in our country. It's not just for the government. Ordinary people must continue to help these people. I think the government is doing its best, but we must be more tolerant of the Syrians.
The government's response to the crisis has been criticised by political parties, and the debate can be heard in the streets.
Okay, get the bad people out of the country, but don't touch the good ones. May God help them. They left their country and came here out of necessity. We should put ourselves in their position. We also would have fled.
Attitudes to the Syrians hardened when Turks realised they might stay permanently. Now, cars with Syrian registration plates are being attacked, as are people speaking Arabic in public. One expert in Middle East humanitarian crises believes the government could have reduced the tension by being more open about the refugee crisis and informing local people about developments.
If the situation continues like this, I'm afraid the Turks will be accused of racism. Sentiments towards the Syrians reflect xenophobia, and the perception of Turks as hospitable may turn into one of racism. We've already seen signs of this.
The government has tried to speed up the process of registering the refugees after an upsurge in crime. 2 registration centres have been set up in Gaziantep. They process hundreds of new arrivals every day. Since January 2013, it's estimated more than 200,000 Syrians have been documented. As the presidential election approached, officials were keen to underline the action being taken by the government.
The labour market must be reformed, and Turkish shopkeepers and traders must be protected. The government is working on new immigration legislation. The final decision will be made by the cabinet. We're also setting up a new refugee camp in the town of Izlahiye.
Turkey has spent billions of euros on the refugee crisis. At the same time, it's lost vital revenue as exports to Syria have collapsed. Now Ankara is looking nervously to the east, fearing another influx from a war-ravaged neighbour, Iraq.